Hi everybody, we're back with Creation
Woohoo!
2.2.
In
So-
lockdown level 3.5. My hair is
No,
getting
no.
so long.
I've got my lockdown haircut. So yesterday we looked at Genesis chapter 1
Yes.
and we said the creation account is primarily about three things. It's an introduction to God,
Mm-hmm.
introduction to creation, and an introduction to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So that was yesterday, and we looked at pretty much at God and creation. So today is
The
humanity.
pinnacle.
The pinnacle of creation, exactly. So we got God's final act. He sees mankind, puts it all together, and says it's very good.
Mm.
And do you remember what he said about mankind when he made them? He said, "I make mankind
In my image.
in my image," was the phrase, and it's a really important phrase. Actually, today,
In
that's all we're
our
going to look at.
image.
In our image.
Is it in our image?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's make man in our image.
Mm.
Yeah, which is an interesting phrase, isn't it? We're going to try and explore that a little bit today. Just trying to work out what are the implications. What do we learn about humanity and other things from that phrase in his image. So, number one, in those days there were a number of temples that existed to various deities, and the practice, as I understand, was that the temple was built, and the final thing to be placed in the temple was the image of that particular god.
Yeah.
And that god, the image, would represent something of what that god was like.
Mm.
So, I don't know, we think about it more, I guess, the likes of maybe Hinduism or something like that, which has got lots of gods, millions of them actually, and each of them have got a little symbol or a little idol image. And you know, there's one, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called Ganesh. He's got an elephant head.
Mm.
You seen that one?
Yeah.
And that's particularly, people pray to that god because the elephant can get rid of obstacles. That's one of the reasons why they pray.
Pushing it out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. So you sort of see...
Waymaker.
Yeah, that's right, the Ganesh Waymaker. It's you see something of the image of that god through the representation of it.
Yeah.
And that's actually what mankind was made for.
To show off God.
To be a representation of God. Yeah. So you know how the Bible says, don't make for yourself any graven image.
Yeah.
You heard that? Do you know what graven images are?
It's an engraving where they
Carving.
carve something. Yeah.
Don't carve yourself an image of God. Why not?
Because it'll never show fully what God is like.
Why not?
Look at my little Jesus.
That's your graven image.
That's rubbish compared to the real.
Yeah, how can that show you what the real God's like?
No.
In the same way, we can't carve something to represent God when God has already carved something to represent himself.
Yeah.
Mankind.
Boom.
So that's what he says, that God has placed within his temple. The garden is like a temple.
Oh, okay. So Eden is like the temple, and the people in it are like the image.
Yeah.
In the temple.
Exactly. So that's one of the things, and we see this sort of temple imagery working out in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, which is primarily where we're looking at today. You see, do you remember there was a river running out of Eden, and it splits into 4 different rivers that go different places, and it's like this, something coming from the garden of God, going out into the world, kind of saying, this is the life of God going out into the world. I mean, do you remember there's an amazing picture of the temple, I think Ezekiel saw, Ezekiel's temple, I think it's Ezekiel 47, where he says he sees this temple and there's this little trickle coming from the temple, and then as he follows it, it gets deeper and deeper, and wherever it flows, it brings life, even to the Dead Sea, and there's beautiful fish, and on the banks there's these trees with beautiful flowers, and it's about the temple bringing life to the world. And in the same way, that's the picture of Eden, with the rivers going out from it, bringing life to the world. It's an invitation for Adam and Eve to go and explore the world around and to bring life to those places. So again, it's the imagery used. We find this storyline being developed in the Bible. So it starts off with the garden, where God and man live together, and then we find even in the tabernacle. Do you remember it's got this lampstand? Moses said, you need to put all these things. One of them was this lampstand. It's like a tree with 7 branches coming off it, and it had all these different flowers carved into it. In the temple, you got these pillars, and again they've got like pomegranates carved into these pillars. It's kind of a reminder of where the temple came from. Yeah. Where this garden where God and man live together. So even the prophets, when they start talking about the restoration of Israel and about the restoration of God and man coming back together, they use garden imagery. You see it quite a lot. I think, let me look at it, it's Isaiah 35, I think it is. Listen to this. So this is Isaiah sort of prophesying the redemption and the restoration of the people of Israel. And he says it's like this: the desert and the parched land will be glad, the wilderness will rejoice and blossom like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. All these Eden references, don't know if you can pick that up. Yeah, and even the stuff about animals, I don't know if you've come across that. I think Isaiah chapter 11, where he says here, again, another kind of restoration passage. He says, the wolf will live with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and the little child will lead them. There's this picture of like an Eden-like place where the animals live together in harmony, where animals and humans can live in friendship. Quite nice, really.
Yeah.
So you'll see that. I think certain accounts of like Daniel in the lion's den. You remember getting stuck in with a bunch of ferocious lions.
Oh, okay. So it's like Eden in that they were in harmony.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Animals and humans together in good relationship. Even Jesus in the wilderness. You remember he was there, and it says at the end of this time of fasting that the angels and the wild animals attended him. So. Oh yes. He was friends. You won't have to worry about snakes or scorpions or anything like that. Anyway, so that's kind of how the Eden, is used in the scriptures, and how this temple, kind of God and man living together, is illustrated throughout the scriptures. So, one last thing would be the passage in Revelation, where you go right the way through to Revelation 21, and John talks about the New Jerusalem, this city coming down out of heaven, and it gives the dimensions of this city.
It's cubic.
It's cubic. Well done. So,
what does that mean, though? Is it 3D?
Yeah, it's 3D. It's as wide as it is long as it is high, and which doesn't really sound particularly significant, except that that's exactly how the Holy of Holies was portrayed.
Oh, okay.
In the tabernacle. So we had a 5 meters by 5 meters by 5 meters in the tabernacle. In the temple, it was bigger, but it was still cubic. It was 10 meters wide, 10 meters long, 10 meters high. And then you've got this city coming down, and it says, it gives the dimensions, 2,200 kilometres wide, 2,200 kilometres long, 2,200 kilometres high. So imagine, I mean, that's the distance from the furthest border we have in South Africa with Mozambique, right the way down to Cape Town. That length of stretch of road would be the same as the height of this New Jerusalem. So, what does it tell you?
Does it? I don't really understand. Like, we all going to be piled on top of each other in a cube?
Yeah. Well, it's high.
It's kind of weird.
This city goes up thousands of kilometres.
So we can fly.
Wow. All it represents, because people do wonder, why is it like that? How come you get a city? What kind of city goes up that high?
What does God mean?
And all it's saying is that this is the temple. This is the Holy of Holies. Okay. And instead of it being a small place in the desert, in the tabernacle or in the temple, now it's the whole universe. That everywhere is being filled with the presence of God. Just like in Eden. Now, not just the whole earth, but the whole universe, the whole cosmos, everywhere is going to be transformed by the presence of God. So that's the temple. And we see that coming out again and again.
Wow.
Okay, so what else do we find in the image of God? Because that's what we're looking at. And we know that the image was meant to represent God to the rest of creation. In other words, something about being in the image of God makes us different from the rest of creation.
Yes.
In what ways are we different, do you think, from the rest of creation? In what ways are we like God that the rest of creation isn't?
You're going to tell us?
I'm going to ask you.
Well, we have a soul.
Right. So yeah, we have, what do you mean by that?
We connect with supernatural.
Right.
In a way that animals don't.
Yeah, definitely. So there's this part of us that can communicate with God. Yeah. I thought you were going to say creativity. That's what I would.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but birds make the most amazing nests when they weave it all together and everything. Is that different to being creative?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Okay.
Yeah, because
we have imagination and creativity and an appreciation of colour and music and...
Yeah, there's some part of beauty and...
Yeah, I don't know if animals have that.
No.
They might do, though. Do you think they don't?
Not in the same way.
Okay.
But, I mean, there's all sorts of things that we can talk about. What does the image of God mean in humanity and how are we different from the rest of creation? But actually, the main thing, I think that the passage in Genesis is talking about, if we go back to it, it tells us, when he talks about being made in the image of God, what does that really mean? It says, verse 26 of chapter 1, God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." And here it is. "Let them rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, over all the creatures that move along the ground."
So we're given dominion.
Yeah. That's primarily what God was meaning, I think, when he said, "I'll put my image in you. You will represent me." In other words, you will be the rulers. You will care for the earth, just the way that I've been doing it, and I've been placing it, we talked about the creation that God did and ordering it and, making it beautiful, separating it out and bringing order from the chaos. Now, it's over to you guys. That's your job now, and you're going to start in the garden that I've already made for you, and you're going to take it out. So you're going to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. That was the kind of remit that God gave to Adam and Eve, to people, to humanity, that I've put my image to rule so that you can then go and spread my rule and show the rest of creation what I'm like through ruling it and caring for it. Not in a harsh way, but in a way of stewarding, looking after my creation.
Yeah, helping everything flourish.
Yeah. So imagine it's like God's family business. It's like God says, here's my business. I'm going to make the earth and I'm going to show it, I'm going to rule over it and make it produce life. Now, Adam, Eve, you're to be in my family business. You're part of this. Now, I'm going to give you the management of the earth to look after, just the way that I've been doing it. Now you do it. So, and that's, so you read Psalm 8, when David says, he says, what is man that you are mindful of him? Yet you've made him a little lower than the angels and given him dominion over all of your works. It's kind of like this thing, wow. Look how amazing mankind is, that God has made us ruler over everything. So, yeah. So, there's a part in Eden where it says, let me just find it and read it. Talking about the rivers that come out from Eden, and it says there's different lands, next to Eden, different things that are there. So there's gold, there is aromatic resin, there's precious stones, all these kind of things that are outside of Eden. In other words, I think God's saying, these are the resources I'm giving you.
Okay.
This is for you to go and explore and to find there's more things outside of Eden that you're to explore and to bring order to. I think all these things were meant for humanity to discover and make, beautiful things out of.
And to share around.
Yeah. And to, so I think, all our technological advances that we've made, all the inventions throughout history, I don't know, the wheel, electricity, if you think about it, everything is just taking the resources that God has provided and bringing order to them in a way that, I don't know, that hopefully life will flourish. That's the idea, ultimately, that God gives us, that we make all these things, these inventions, right through to the semiconductor and the supercomputer and all that. All of those things are done.
You have such different examples to me. I'd be thinking chocolate, pesto, cheese.
Yeah, those are the greatest inventions. So
guitars.
So that's the thing. But often we will, we tend to think of, we'll use the resources of the planet for ourselves, and almost it becomes a selfish thing.
Yeah.
When actually God meant it for bringing life to everything.
We've really messed up, haven't we?
Yeah. So we the whole ecological movement that has come out of actually understanding how mankind is meant to steward the earth and look after it for the good of all life.
Yeah.
Not just for
bring him glory.
Yeah. Ultimately, this will bring him glory. So that's all part of this kind of creation theology, if you like.
So it's much bigger than the little cartoon we did then, the man and the woman and the tree and the snake.
Yeah, there's so much to it.
It's like kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, and you see it, so this is how it plays out, that God gives Adam and Eve dominion. Yeah. And that is given, he doesn't take that back, even through the fall and, and man's rebellion. There's still this sense in which God says, I'm going to use mankind to look after the earth. He works through mankind. He doesn't work independently. He works through mankind. That's the whole story of the Bible, why he chooses Abraham and he chooses the people of Israel and says to them, I'm going to make you into a kingdom of priests.
Yeah.
So in other words, they're the people that are then to represent God to the earth.
And then Jesus.
And then Jesus, obviously, he's called the image of God. And so whatever we want to know about God, we see in Jesus. But the interesting thing, and we often think about that, I mean, obviously Jesus said, whoever has seen me has seen the Father, and, only do what I see the Father doing, those kind of things. But, it struck me a little while ago that not only was Jesus representing God to humanity, but he was actually showing us what true humanity was. If he is the image of God as a human, then he is representing true humanity. He's representing what humanity was meant to be all along. And so, when we look at Jesus, we don't just see God, we see the perfect human. So the sense of fun and joy and laughter and compassion and care aren't just attributes of God, but they're attributes of true humanity. And that's what we can understand true humanity to be. And I think that that's part of what God is doing in his redemption of humanity, is to bring us back to who humanity really was meant to be.
I need to just go and lie down and think about that before.
Well, and then obviously after Jesus, we get the church, who are themselves called a royal priesthood. And so that is one of our roles now as a priests to the world.
To be all those things you just said Jesus was, like fun and generous, fully alive.
Absolutely.
That kids love.
Yeah. That's what it means to be truly human. And in a sense, that's what God has put on the planet now, to demonstrate what he's like to the world and to demonstrate to the rest of humanity what they can be.
Lord, help us.
Yeah, it's a high calling. So, yeah. Okay, so with all that in mind, we're going to set a discussion question, which is...
Switch on your brains.
For everyone to discuss, what are the implications of humanity made in God's image as we face social issues such as racism and disabilities, poverty, abortion, all those things? What does the image of God have to say about those? And we'll chat about that soon. Bye for now.
Bye.